ವಿಶ್ವದೆಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ಕರೋನಾ ಒಮಿಕ್ರಾನ್ ಅಬ್ಬರ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗುತ್ತಿದ್ದಂತೆ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ತಲ್ಲಣ ಆತಂಕ ಮನೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಸೋಂಕಿನ ಗುಣಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳು ಕಂಡುಬರುತ್ತಿದ್ದಂತೆ ರೋಗಿಗಳ ದಂಡು ಖಾಸಗಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರಿ ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಲಗ್ಗೆಯಿಡುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳನ್ನು ಮೆಟ್ಟಿ ನಿಂತು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಭಾರತೀಯ ರೆಡ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ರಕ್ತನಿಧಿ ತನ್ನದೇ ಆದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಸೇವೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಕೇಳಿ.
ಸೊ ಇದು ಫುಲ್ಲಿ ಆಟೋಮೇಟೆಡ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಗ್ರೂಪಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್, ಇಮ್ಯುನೋಮೆಟಾಲಜಿ ಫುಲ್ಲಿ ಆಟೋಮೇಟೆಡ್ ಎಕ್ವಿಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ರಕ್ತದಾನಿಗಳು ರಕ್ತದಾನ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಅನ್ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಟಿಬಾಡೀಸು ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಗ್ರೂಪಿಂಗ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಮಿಷಿನ್.
ಎಷ್ಟು ಒಂದು ಟೈಮ್ ಎಷ್ಟು
ಒನ್ ಟೈಮಿಗೆ 80 ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. 80 ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇದರಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮದು ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಡಾಟಾ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ವೇರ್ ಇದೆ. ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ವೇರಿಗೆ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ರಕ್ತದಾನಿಗಳು ರಕ್ತದಾನ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. HIV, ಹೆಪಟೈಟಿಸ್ B, ಹೆಪಟೈಟಿಸ್ C, ಮಲೇರಿಯಾ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಫುಲ್ಲಿ ಆಟೋಮೇಟೆಡ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್. ಸೊ 1 ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ 180 ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
1 ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ.
ಸೊ ಈ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಓಕೆ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪೇಷಂಟ್ಗೆ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳಿ ಏನು ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಇದು? ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಮ್ ಎಲ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ?
ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಮ್ ಎಲ್ ಅಂತ ಬರಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಗೋಲ್ಡ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಗೋಲ್ಡ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ನಾವು ಸಪ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ 3 ಬ್ಯಾಗು, ಬೇಕೇಟು ಮತ್ತು FH ಅಂತ. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಸಪ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮುಗಿದು ಉಳಿಗೆ ಇದು
ಉಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು. ಯಾವ ಸಪ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು? ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ?
ಸಪ್ರೇಷನ್ ಸಪ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಬರೀ ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ.
ಹಾಂ ಹಾಂ ಹಾಂ
280 ml ಬರ್ಬೋದು, 250 ml ಬರ್ಬೋದು, 300 ಬರ್ಬೋದು. ಗೋಲ್ಬೆಡಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸಪ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ 3.
ಸೊ ಪ್ಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಅಂತ 5 days ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಡೆಂಗ್ಯೂ ಪೇಷಂಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ, ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಪೇಷಂಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
5 days ಆದಮೇಲೆ
5 days ಒಳಗಡೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗೇ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಅಂದಾಜು
ಸರ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕೌನ್ಸಿಲ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ಗಿಂತ 50% ಕಡಿಮೆ ಪ್ರೈಸಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾವುದೇ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಏನು ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆವಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಚಾರ್ಜಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಿ?
ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ರೆಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಬಂದು 1000 rupees ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಮಾ ಪ್ಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಬಂದು 600 rupees ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟ್ಲ್ಗಳಾದ್ರೆ
ಅದೇ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟ್ಲಿಗೆ ಆ ಪ್ರೈಸ್.
BPL ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡರ್ ಆದರೆ ಏನು ಕಡಿಮೆ?
BPL ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡರ್ ಆಗಿ ಅವ್ರು ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಫ್ರೀ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ವರ್ಷವಿಡೀ ನಿಗದಿಯಾಗಿದ್ದಂಥ ರಕ್ತದಾನ ಶಿಬಿರಗಳು ಕಳೆದ 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಅಸ್ತವ್ಯಸ್ತಗೊಂಡಿವೆ. ಬೆರಳೆಣಿಕೆ ರಕ್ತದಾನ ಶಿಬಿರಗಳು ಹಾಗೂ ಸಂಚಾರಿ ರಕ್ತದಾನ ಸಂಗ್ರಹಣೆ ರಕ್ತನಿಧಿಗೆ ಆಧಾರವಾಗಿ ಭಾರತೀಯ ರೆಡ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ರಕ್ತನಿಧಿಯ ವೈದ್ಯಾಧಿಕಾರಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಸೌಮ್ಯ ಬ್ಯಾನರ್ಜಿ ರಕ್ತನಿಧಿ ಕುರಿತು ಸಮಗ್ರ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನು ಉದಯ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಹಂಚಿಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದು ಹೀಗೆ.
Like as part of a camp, we also organize confirmed camps with various organizations, colleges, IT companies, etc. And once the blood is collected, we bring them back here. Then we process them, as in we separate them into various components. Each depending on the type and the amount of blood that we have collected, we can divide blood into 2 to 3 components per unit.
Okay.
So the blood can be made into packed red cells, which is for people with anemia, okay, and it can also be made into plasma, which is for patients who are suffering from diseases like coagulopathy.
Okay.
It can also be separated into platelets, which is necessary in conditions such as dengue, hemorrhagic fever, and some other conditions which lead to lowering of platelets specifically. So once we divide the blood into these 3 components, each unit can be divided into 2 to 3 components.
Okay.
So they all have the same unit number. So then after that they are stored at their respective temperature conditions. Packed red cells needs to be stored between 2 to 6 degrees Celsius. So we have a fridge for that. We have a freezer basically. Not freezer, that would be called a fridge. So we have a fridge for that. The plasma needs to be stored at much lower temperatures, minus 30 degrees Celsius. So for that we have a separate kind of freezer. And platelets need to be stored at room temperature, 22 to 25 degrees Celsius, but they need continuous agitation so that they don't clump inside the bag. So for that also we have a specific instrument called the platelet agitator. So they are stored at their respective conditions so that they can be utilized to the maximum. Packed red cells have a shelf life of 35 or 42 days depending on what kind of bag we are collecting them in. Platelets have a shelf life of 5 days, so they need to be used within those 5 days. And plasma has a lifespan of 1 year, so it can be issued within 1 year. So once these are done, we have an inventory, we have an automated system in which we in which we update everything. So when the blood is collected from the camps or in-house, we enter them with the donor details into the machine against a specific donor donation number. Once the component separation is done, that section of our blood bank updates it that this unit has been divided into these components. And then when they are issued, again another section is updated. So you have the full record that this unit has come from this patient, from this donor, has been separated on this date and time into these 2 or 3 components, and each of these has been issued to these patients. Before we do that, we also do something called TTI testing. TTI stands for transfusion transmitted infection. So these are the infections that we test for that can be transmitted by blood from one person to another. So we need to test every unit for 5 things to ensure that these 5 things are not present in the donor blood and cannot be transmitted into the patient who is going to receive the blood. So the 5 things we test for are hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, syphilis and malaria. So this is compulsory. It is made mandatory by the government of India. So we will have to test for all these 5 things. If a unit is negative for all the 5 things, only then it is safe to transfuse to a patient. If any one or more is reactive, it shows a positive result, we do not issue that unit to the patient. We discard that unit. Okay. So the test results are also updated and present on the system against the unit number. So all of that is done. So we also perform a specialized procedure called platelet emphysis. So it is a special technique using a special machine which collects blood from the donor, separates it into the components while the procedure is running, collects only the platelet and returns everything else back to the donor. So unlike normal donation, which takes 10 to 15 minutes, this process takes about an hour, and we can collect much higher units of platelet from one donor, okay, without affecting them. So so this unit is a specialized component which is required in cases where there is severe platelet deficiency, again like in dengue hemorrhagic fever and other conditions which can lead to severe platelet deficiency. So these are the activities that we perform inside the blood bank, and we also have a separate type of testing. A separate part of the lab is dedicated to immunohematological testing. That means when we receive a request for a patient, this is the patient's name, he or she is this is their age, this is their diagnosis, they are in this particular hospital, they need this component in this many amount, like 1 PRBC. So when we receive the request, each request is received with a sample of the patient's blood. Okay. So what we do is we take those 2 samples, we do an ABO and RHD typing of the patient. Let's say it is A positive. So then we look into our inventory that how many A positive units we have. We pick one A positive unit and we do a test called cross matching, in which we do a specialized series of tests with the donor blood and the patient blood, and ensure that they will not react inside the patient's body to cause something harmful. Okay. So that process is called cross matching. So if the cross match is compatible, as in it shows that there will be no reaction, only then it is safe to transfuse to the patient. So when we issue a unit, it needs to be separated into the respective components, it needs to be negative for all the TTAs that we are testing for, and it needs to be compatible, cross-match compatible with that particular recipient whose blood we have received along with the request. Once all of these criteria are fulfilled, we issue the unit and it is transfused to the patient at the bedside to whichever hospital they are admitted in.
Blood bank Omicron effect ಏನಾಗಿದೆ?
Omicron effect is as of now the camps again have been affected because most of our collections happen by camps, by way of camps. We don't have that much in-house collection. We do, but not as significant as camps. So since colleges, education, IT institutions and everything, they are considering closing down again, it will probably have an effect on our donor pool. So the pre-pandemic collection, whatever was our collection, it was gradually beginning to come up to that level. We had recovered about 66% of the previous level, pre-pandemic level. But I'm expecting a dip again because of the pandemic. Let's see how it happens at the end of January.
Thank you.
Yeah.